Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
I have with me today Ambassador P.S. Raghavan. He was India's former ambassador to Russia and also former chairman to the National Security Advisory Board. Welcome to the Prince, sir.
Thank you very much. Very nice to be with you.
Thank you, sir. Same here. Sir, to quickly start off, the flavor of the season right now is the upcoming India-Russia annual summit. After all, it is happening, after last it was in 2019. So a lot of expectations are, going to take place from this in the sense that firstly, the signing of the S-400 deal. I'll quickly go on to that. But just to set the tone, sir, how do you see this summit shaping up? Because this is also the very first time when these two countries are going to have a 2+2 dialogue between the foreign and the defense ministers. So if you can share your thoughts on that, sir.
Yeah, I think this visit is going to be very important for a number of reasons. But first of all, in order to, shall we say, correct some speculations about the health of the bilateral relationships and some unhelpful narratives about the relationship. Particularly, as you well know, the postponement of the summit last year caused a lot of speculation about the nature of the relationship and about the inspiration for that. So I think this visit will clear the air of some of those unhelpful narratives, as I said. And I will say also that, it has been prepared in a very meticulous way. If you see in the last 6 months or so, our external affairs minister went to Moscow, had intensive discussions with them, and his speech at the Institute of International Relations is a very explicit speech about the nature of the relations. The Security Council chief of Russia, General Patrushev, has been to India twice, not once. Once for bilateral discussions and once for multilateral discussions. You had our deputy NSA go there as well. Our foreign secretary was there. And so you have a very large number of events that have taken place. The Joint Commission for Economic Cooperation has taken place. The Joint Commission for Military Technical Cooperation will take place between the two defense ministers on the day of the summit. And then, as you say, the 2+2. The 2+2 is a very significant initiative that has been taken once again to demonstrate to our peoples as well as to the world that there is a level of foreign policy and strategic coordination that will take place between the two countries, which illustrates the nature of the relationship. So I would say that this is the canvas which we are presented with for President Putin's visit.
Mm-hmm. So that's very interesting what you said about the fact that while there were many kind of, understanding as to why the summit did not take place last year, but significantly, we saw defense minister going there, foreign minister going there, and as you said, NSA and all. And we also saw, how Russia they said that they did not mediate, but then we saw how ministers between India and China were coming together, meeting in person in Moscow. That led to a sort of a roadmap, I would say, when it comes to the standoff that we are seeing with China at the LAC. Do you agree that Moscow really played a good and a significant role to try and balance between both its friends, that is China and India?
I'm not fully with you on that interpretation because Russia certainly did want to provide the territory for the discussions between India and China. But they were very careful. They don't want to be seen as a mediator. They understand the prickliness that both our countries have about mediation in our discussions. So they were very careful to be at a distance. Yes, they did. They provided a very friendly location in which both of us could meet. They provided us also the multilateral occasion. Otherwise, the Indian and Chinese foreign ministers, the defense ministers would never have got together to meet. It so happened that there was this multilateral occasion where they managed to get us both. So they really did help in creating conditions where we could meet. We need to make a distinction between providing the facilities for that and being a mediator.
Right.
So and they were very careful. They didn't want to balance. You see, this balancing is very dangerous. Neither country would like to think that Moscow is balancing us with the other.
Absolutely. No, I agree to that, sir. But also, I said that because when every other country was looking away. Yes, we did get help from US as well. We were very grateful in the sense that, I remember External Affairs Minister talking about the fact, and also the Foreign Secretary, about a certain Moscow agreement in one of the events. But moving ahead, sir, when it comes to India-Russia bilateral ties, now we know that this is an age-old friend that we have. We have most of our defense procurement from Russia. However, we also have this CATSA sword hanging on India, also, other partners. But yes, S-400 deal, as we all know, and you have also written in a number of places that yes, maybe for S-400 there will be a waiver. But what about the future defense procurement? Because now that we are going to see a 2+2, I'm sure, and there are also many defense deals that are in the pipeline. How do you think India will play that fine balance, sir?
Yeah. We've been in touch with the Americans about S-400 and about CATSA in general for quite a while now. Mm-hmm. And I would say that there is a distinct difference in the attitudes of the Trump administration and the Biden administration. One should not get led away by some of the public statements. Public statements will continue to be negative. I would give you as an example, just as a slight digression, I'll give you as an example. The CATSA was also invoked on Germany because of the Russian-German energy pipeline Nord Stream 2.
Okay.
And, to this day, the Americans continue to say from the Secretary of State downwards that they do not agree with that project. They think it's a geopolitical project. It compromises Europe's energy security. They say all this. In the midst of that, they quietly gave a waiver to Germany, which enabled that project to go through. And even after having given the waiver, they continue to be saying that, this is a bad project, it's a geopolitical project. So, you understand, they may think it's a bad project. They may think that it sort of compromises India's, strengthens India's friendship with Russia. But they also understand that India is a close strategic partner, and you do not sanction your close strategic partner. So, I would say that the nature of India-US relations being what it is today and strengthening further with so many interests which are mutual, they will eventually find a way of letting us get ahead with CATSA. But the other point that you mentioned is an important point. That is, you see, CATSA does not have a provision for a general waiver as of now. Now, we also do not want to be in a situation where we go running to the US for each project, for each system and say, can we buy this? Will CATSA be attracted, or will you waive CATSA for this? Mm-hmm. We have to find a solution to that. But there is, of course, one little silver lining there. CATSA is supposed to apply only to significant defense transactions. And the US itself, in various congressional testimonies and other statements, they have clarified what it means. It does not include, say, upgrade of equipment. It does not include routine purchases. It does not include repair and maintenance. So, the helicopters we are ordering, or even the assault rifles that we're going to be manufacturing in India, the submarine refits, I don't think they come under the scope of CATSA, even as presently defined. So, to that extent, a large amount of the cooperation that we already have and that is ongoing will not attract CATSA. Mm-hmm. If we have another technologically advanced system that we're going to get, then CATSA comes in. But as you know, there is a move in various parts of the US establishment to see whether they can find a way out for India on CATSA, understanding perfectly well the importance of the India-Russia defense cooperation for our own security, for our own military preparedness. And our military preparedness is in American interest because, when America stands against China, it sees India as a bulwark against China. And it does not serve its purpose by making India militarily vulnerable. And obviously, if you restrict our cooperation with Russia, which is very vibrant and which includes systems like S-400 is important, you are undermining our defense vulnerability. And that's not what the US wants. So I think the ingredients are there. The mindset is there. There is a positive inclination in the US. There are various initiatives, as you are probably aware, which have been moved in the Congress as well, to find a way of not applying CATSA to India. So we have to see where it goes from here.
I think there could be something exceptional, happening in terms of CATSA for the Quad countries, maybe, no?
Yeah, that's one of the initiatives that has been moved by one of the Republican senators, Ted Cruz, in the Senate, which basically says that, the Quad countries would be exempt from sanctions, or they waive the sanctions. Now, of course, when they say Quad countries, they mean only India, because India is the only country against which there is even the potential of a sanction. Japan and Australia, there's no question of sanctions against them. Therefore, quite obviously, that is directed at India without mentioning India. So as I said, there is this understanding that something has to be done. There's an understanding that India-US relations are valuable, and that you do not undermine India-US relationship, the India-US relationship, by sanctioning India.
So then also this is going to be a time after a long time since 2018, when we see President Putin coming to New Delhi and he'll be meeting Prime Minister Modi. So I'm sure a lot of difficult issues would also be on the table that these two leaders would like to smoothen out. Now, the first thing would be that of Indo-Pacific, sir. Now, India says that we see Indo-Pacific policy, as you're well aware, sir, as an all-inclusive policy. And Russia is also most welcome to be a part of it. But Russia has labeled it as an American design policy. It is anti many things, anti the world. We've heard Russian foreign minister talking about it several times. So where do you think that balance would come? Also keeping in mind, sir, that Russia wants that greater Eurasian plan to sort of go through, which they see probably as a counter to Indo-Pacific. What do you have to say on that, sir?
Yeah. Actually, I must say that the Indo-Pacific has been discussed between Prime Minister Modi and President Putin quite a few times, including at their last meeting in Vladivostok in 2019. And in fact, if you see what President Putin said at the press conference in 2019 in Vladivostok, he said that we discussed security in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. That is as close to saying Indo-Pacific as you can. Now, you see, actually, the Russian reaction to the Indo-Pacific arises from two very fundamental reasons. One is the very acrimonious US-Russia standoff that has taken place since 2014, and the Trump administration's formulation of the Indo-Pacific as a kind of a campaign of the free world against a repressive world order and against revisionist powers and so on. So the Trump administration framed it in a manner that Russia felt that both Russia and China were targeted. India's message to Russia always has been that, look, the Indo-Pacific is intended, as far as we are concerned, to draw China into a cooperative order. It is not against even China. It is aimed at China. It's certainly not aimed at Russia and China. In fact, as we tell the Russians, and that was the signal that was given by the Prime Minister going to Vladivostok, by our Act Far East initiative, by our $1 billion line of credit which was opened up, and the Chennai-Vladivostok corridor, which, by the way, is being used now to even transport LNG from the Arctic to India. So the signal is that, look, we are not, Indo-Pacific is not against China and Russia, most certainly not against Russia. We would like Russia to participate in the Indo-Pacific. It is also a Pacific power. It's interested in a security order in the Pacific. And as you said, it is actually quite compatible with President Putin's Greater Eurasian Partnership, which envisages countries of Eurasia coming together in a cooperative order, which includes China, which includes Japan, which includes India, in an equal cooperative order. That is the whole idea. So it's actually our initiative to try to wean Russia away from opposition to the Indo-Pacific idea. Now, I know Foreign Minister Lavrov has been saying this quite often, and it's unfortunate that he says this in such public fora and in such harsh terms. You see, if you look at it, Indian leaders and Indian officials have not, after all, talked about Russia-China relations in the same way. After all, we are also concerned about the nature of Russia-China relations, on which we have a dialogue with the Russians. We do not publicly rail against the nature of Russia-China relations. So it's a bit unfortunate that the Russian foreign minister should find it fit in every public forum to talk about geopolitical structures. because that sort of belittles India in a way. It is trying to say that, India is being led by the nose into a partnership that it does not want. That's wrong. So I would say that is a bit unfortunate. But I think Russia, the President Putin, I will make a distinction between President Putin and the foreign ministry. I think President Putin does, appreciate India's stand on the Indo-Pacific in a much better way.
Okay, that's very interesting to hear, sir. And this is something I'm hearing actually for the first time. I've never really looked at that statement from that aspect, that where he went too near to mentioning Indo-Pacific. But sir, as you rightly said, we are also a little concerned and maybe a little disturbed with the growing ties between Russia and China. But we do respect the fact, India respects the fact that Russia and China have their own sort of bilateral relationship, which is growing. But do you think this is also the time when Prime Minister Modi can discuss the concerns that India is increasingly having with the Chinese aggression? And, Russia is also watching. They're so well aware as to what is going on at the LAC. Do you think this is the time to discuss it out with President Putin?
I don't think we need to discuss our problems with China with President Putin, because that is, again, like inviting a third-party participation in our issues with China. Russia knows perfectly well our problems with China. I don't think they need to be explained to them at all. What Russia wants to do is to stay away from that. Now, what we are interested in, look, as you said, that we cannot object to Russia's relations with other countries, and particularly China, which is its neighbor just as it is our neighbor. And there are a number of mutually beneficial cooperation initiatives between Russia and China. What we are interested in and what we would like to ensure is that Russia-China relations in no way turns in a direction that affects our core national interests. Now, if you see, for example, when our defense minister went in 2020 to Moscow, one of the things that he talked about was in maintaining the schedules of defense supplies.
Right.
Also, he talked about fast-tracking some supplies. I don't know what they were, but he did announce that he talked about fast-tracking some supplies and that the Russians agreed to this. Now, that was a time when the Chinese actually tried to, there are news reports that the Chinese tried to tell the Russians that, look, when your two strategic partnerships have tensions against each other, you should not be supplying lethal weaponry to one. Mm-hmm. Now, the Russians ignored it. The Russians actually continued with the supply. And if you see that the S-400 is going to come very soon, it, I think, illustrates that the Russians have proceeded with the agreements with India without succumbing to Chinese pressure. Now, that's a good sign. We have to, however, of course, we have to keep monitoring the nature of Russia-China relations. And we hope that Russia's interest in India and the strategic construct of our relations will continue to ensure that it will not act against our interests with China.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very interesting, sir, that, discussing that would also mean that you are having a third-party talk in the bilateral relation that you have with China. But now, sir, coming to the fact that, we've seen in the last few months, many things have changed since India and Russia had their annual summit. We've seen what has happened to Afghanistan with the coming back of the Taliban. But we've seen also how Russia is giving us a platform in a way to engage with the Taliban when it comes to giving humanitarian assistance and aid to the Afghan people. And, this was also the time when India was invited for the Moscow format talks. Their special envoy was here when NSA held a meeting. Do you think when it comes to Afghanistan, India will be following as to what Moscow is doing? Because this is a time when every country seems a little confused as to what to do in terms of recognizing the Taliban vis-a-vis helping the Afghan people there, because their economy has nearly collapsed.
Yeah, Russia's policy towards Afghanistan, again, attracted a lot of criticism in India. And that is one of the things that contributed to the negative narrative about India-Russia relations. But I think we need to understand a few things. We need to understand that today, the nature of global politics is such that countries have to take decisions which are, of course, in accordance with their national interests, but which respond to some of the threats that they immediately have. Now, if you see Russia's engagement with Afghanistan was, of course, right from the beginning intended to make sure that they protect the porous Afghanistan Central Asia border from terrorism, from drugs, and from refugees and so on. But also, because of the Russia-US standoff, they suspected that the US and the West may in some way use that border to send in unfavorable elements, if you like, into Russia through Central Asia. And therefore, they started engaging with the Taliban as a kind of a defense against the US in Afghanistan. And then when the US wanted to leave Afghanistan, they actually joined up with the US. And then they had this troika and the extended troika with the Chinese and the Pakistanis and so on. Now, that did not, once the Americans left, the Russians continue to have this concern about terrorism and drugs and Islamic elements coming in from there, and their interests coincide with ours. Mm-hmm. And that is where we are now in touch with them. They would, of course, like to take advantage of whatever links they have already built up with the Taliban to try to see whether they can persuade the Taliban to stop Islamic elements from coming into Central Asia. But they also understand perfectly well that these are all the Taliban's bedfellows, and therefore the Taliban is not going to be either willing or able to stop fellow Islamic radicals from creating trouble, whether it is in Russia or in China. So we have now once again a confluence of interests with Russia on Afghanistan. We should not exaggerate it, but we have that. You see, this brings to the larger picture. You have to recognize that given the change in the global situation, we do not have a congruence of interests with Russia on all subjects. We have a convergence of interests with Russia on many subjects. And the nature of our strategic partnership should be such that we build on the convergences and see how we can manage the divergences. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if we do that, if we right-size our expectations with the India-Russia relations, then we will not be subjected to disappointment from time to time, because sometimes we expect too much. And then we are disappointed that we do not do the relations do not meet the expectations. And this is true, by the way, of relations with all countries. Mm-hmm. No strategic partnership will work 100% to your liking. There will be disagreements.
Mm-hmm. So then lastly, my question to you will be, although we are all waiting for the summit to take place, now we've seen reports coming up on the fact that there could be a 10-year military agreement, a military technical agreement that could be signed between India and Russia, and also a logistical agreement, much on the lines of what we have with the US in terms of the LIMOA. If these agreements are signed, what is it that we are going to see as the next step, the next level as far as enhancement of defense relationship is concerned between India and Russia?
See, there are two elements here. One is the nature of our defense relationship with Russia is such that there will be a continuous pipeline of projects which will sort of add on to the technologies we have already acquired, which will include upgrading of the systems that we have into next generations. But also one more thing, it will promote greater indigenization of equipment in India. Now, this is something, here again is an area where Russia has been more forthcoming than some of the other countries, for the simple reason that Russia has state-owned industries and other countries have private industries.
Right.
So since we are the world's second largest arms importer, we can actually leverage our position to try to force all our suppliers, including Russia, to help in transferring more technology and indigenization. So this is a program that will continue, and I imagine that our long-term program will include a large element of indigenization, make in India. We can even, in a way, make in India for supply to Russia and other countries that Russia supplies equipment to. So these are all possibilities that we can do. Now, this is one part of it. The other part of it is we should not lose track of the fact that we are also diversifying our arms acquisition. So this does not mean that we are going to go back into 100% dependence on Russia. Mm-hmm. Over the last 10 years, at least, really from 2008 onward to 8 or 9 onwards, we have been diversifying our arms acquisition program. And If you should see the last CIPRI arms transfer report from
Yes, imports have really reduced. Yeah.
So we have gone in the last 5 years, 49% of our arms imports have been from Russia. Now, 49% is a large number, but it has come down from 70%. So this is a trend that will also continue. The problem is that, it could have been faster if we could have gotten higher technologies from other countries faster. Now, there the procedures are taking much longer than they should have taken, in my opinion. So both will continue, an intensification of military technical cooperation with Russia and a diversification. And there is no contradiction between the two. I think both will happen and both should happen.
Well, sir, on that note, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts and going so deep into the subject. But thank you for talking to the Prince, sir, and you please take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All the best.